Hi love. So I spent my entire December in Zimbabwe, and to be respectful, I always call everybody that I think is older than me sis or sister. So that is what I'd been doing to my neighbors until my mom told me that the lady was actually a teen. Mind you, I had seen her with a child who was about 5 years old. So I honestly assumed that she was older than me. And also seeing the husband being in his 40s, I thought this is just a normal couple until I realized that that was actually a teenager who had had a child at a very young age. I was shook, but everyone around me was kind of like, well, it's normal, like it's not that serious. And as I started to look around my neighborhood, where I was, my country, Zimbabwe, I realized that a lot of teenagers are getting pregnant, and not only getting pregnant, but are getting impregnated, is that a word? By older men, and not just like 20-year-olds dating teenagers, but like 40s and 50-year-old, 30-year-olds. And I was like, hold on, because it always seems like whatever is happening in the West is like worse. Everywhere around in the world, it has become crazy. Amount of teen pregnancy is shocking, and that is something that we need to discuss today.
At 15, she's 4 months pregnant, betrayed by the person she trusted most.
An older man down there survived the abuse of many kids and
my water broke at school.
Do you guys like my new setup? Because I am with a child. I am pregnant, by the way. I don't know if you've heard the news. I've been saying that in like every video. Anyway, I have decided to find a new place for me to film this year. I also bought a really nice fauteuil. What do we call it in English? A little couch, I guess. I got it secondhand, 35 euros. Absolutely love it. So this is where we are today. But anyway, sub-Saharan Africa has one of the highest pregnancy rates. I mean, between the ages of 15 and 19, 19% of these kids get pregnant during that time. 19%. I know at least 5 people at the top of my head who got pregnant while being a teen. And because of this, many of these girls, many of these young women, let's not even call them women, these children end up dropping out of school because of these reasons. Also, they face a high risk of health problems because number one, they're teens. They don't know what the heck is happening. They don't know how to take care of themselves because they are children and they are now pregnant. Like the things that I'm going through right now, I can't imagine facing those things being a teen. And also, this is just a recurring thing in Africa where it's just not getting better, it's getting worse and worse. And it's also having a huge impact in our economy and just basically the well-being of families in general. Now, let's talk about one of the main causes of teenage pregnancy, which is the role of older men and grooming, basically predatory behavior. I remember when I was still in high school, that's around the time when the whole blessed culture really became to rise, and it wasn't like an ill type of topic. It was more like, I want a blesser so that I can be able to get that bust down, so that I can be able to look like a slay queen. If you're from South Africa, you remember that time where the slay queens were a thing and the whole blessers thing. But then it was mostly older women over 18 kind of going with this lifestyle. And then it honestly became to descend to the teenagers wanting this type of lifestyle where they get an older man, a sugar daddy, to pay for things that, you know, teenagers want. And I knew the world was going to an end when this teenager was bragging about getting pizza at break, about being taken out to a restaurant, things that are just so mundane, you know, but the way she was just so happy and giving out so much of herself for pizza, for an iPhone. That's when I knew, yeah, the economy might have something to do with this as well. Because why is this teenage girl sacrificing her body, her morals, everything for an iPhone? Something over here is, you know, like everybody has one. But because of these men, these young girls are made to see that as something significant where it's really not. These men, especially in poverty-stricken places, which I've seen in Zimbabwe, where the men are not really promising all that as some are being promised iPhones, some are just being promised food, some are just being promised money to pay their school fees. So these men really know how to manipulate these young girls that are in these vulnerable situations where often there are no parents. Often the parents are not even at home. They are working in another country to provide for their kids. So now that oldest child is now the head of the family. So therefore she is fragile. She is vulnerable. And these older men see that and target these young kids. There's always this power dynamic where these men know that these kids need certain things to be able to survive. So therefore, that is what they use. And these men aren't these crazy, like, outside, strangers. They're often family members and also neighbors, the people that watch you grow, the people that saw you, be a 3-year-old. These are the same people that are waiting for you to turn 16 or to turn 12 years old, to turn 13 years old, so that they can dangle food in front of you so that you can sleep with them and basically give them who you are. And because of the lack of agency due to the economic struggles in most of these societies in Africa, many girls feel they have no choice. They want to help their family survive. They even do this to help their entire family be able to survive. And they are teenagers. And it's so sad because whenever I was trying to have these conversations back home, people were looking at me like, well, these girls are too forward. That was the main argument a lot of people have. They're like, oh, you don't know these girls. You don't know these girls. Well, it's like, no, I don't care how forward you think that kid is. It's still a kid. The mindset that I had at 16 and the mindset that I have now at 24, like, it's completely different. And that's one thing that's also that's making the situation stay the same, because people have normalized it. People have put the blame on the kids because the kids are too forward. The kids want the latest thing. They want to wear nice clothes, all that kind of stuff. And that is why they're getting in relationships and taking other people's mans. You have grown women who are angry at these teens for taking their husbands. They are seeing the complete fault just to the kid, and it's absolutely crazy. And another thing is the lack of legal intervention, because you would see the scenario happen, right? And then you would tell the police. Someone would just bribe them. There's just too much bribing happening. It's crazy in Africa. Like, for everything, you can just pay for everything. And also the police, the people that are in law enforcement, also have their own little teenagers back at home that are wives. So it's kind of like, who do you turn to? Despite a lot of laws in Africa being against, not all, being against child marriage, many cases just go unpunished because of corruption. And because of these things, because no one sees anyone going to jail for being a that word is such a buzz in the Western side, but that side, that's not even a word really. Like, no one really cares because it's so normalized. Like, no one is going to jail for anything like that unless you like grape like a 3-year-old. No one is batting an eye, especially if it was like a 12-year-old, especially one who's curvaceous and who was supposedly looking for it. No one bats an eye. It's normal. No one cares. It's not a topic of discussion. Automatically, the girl child is the problem. So what some of us sometimes see, especially on social media, is a teenage girl with an older man and her bragging about it and, her being all sexual and showing all this stuff. And you see people in the comments not be on her side and be like, well, she wants it. These kids these days, they love the attention. They're looking for it. And as much as that makes sense to say that after reviewing that certain video, we have to honestly look at the psychology of these young girls. Why do they act the way that they do? Because they really do sometimes make it hard for people to defend them, because it's like, girl, now what were you doing there? But let's look at how they actually go to that route. And also consider the fact that their frontal lobe is not fully developed. Like, they are babies, basically. Besides that, seeking validation. Many of these young girls grow up in families where they have no validation from their own parents. Like, they are not emotionally catered to. As we've spoken about in my Why Millennials Are Cutting Off Their African Parents, we've talked about that. The Firstborn Daughter, we've talked about that. Check those videos out. That dynamic between that African parent and that African child, there is no attention that is brought to them. So they seek out that type of love from other men. That love that they're lacking from their fathers, they seek it out from other men. Not only that, a lot of these children are growing up in fatherless homes. And you think that in Africa, you know, as much as, you know, we always talk about family and this and this and that, a lot of homes have absent fathers who are present. He's there, but as soon as he walks inside the house, everybody is going to their room. Those are the type of homes that these young girls are growing up in. Number 2, the sexualization of young Black girls. I remember specifically on this day when I was living in South Africa, in Cape Town, there was this 4-year-old, very fat, and I remember her walking down, and a group of men that were sitting were all turning heads, looking at that child. That is when I knew it doesn't matter how you dress, doesn't matter how old you are, especially if you're at that vulnerable age under 18. That is where most men, most predators are checking you out. From our childhood, we are made to be more grown than we actually are. Whatever attention that we get, we are blamed for it. We, at a young age, are told to dress differently than our white counterparts. Our bodies just doing what they're supposed to do is seen as a sin, right? We are always told this hairstyle is too grown, this and this and this is too grown. We are just made to grow up faster than everybody else. And that is in our own community. That is also outside of our community. The standard, it's crazy. And it all starts from that age of like 9, 10, 11. That's the vulnerable ages. So put that in mind. This girl child, no emotional support at home. She's been sexualized since she was a child. It's also the glorification that these teens see, right? Especially on social media, especially on our TV, especially in real life. The whole sprinkle, the whole idea of getting a rich man, not having to work. Those are the type of influence that are in our neighborhoods, that are in our surroundings, that are in the music that they listen to as well. Relationships with older men are getting more and more glorified, and these young girls don't realize that they are teenagers, right? And that what they're seeing is for grown women, you know, hopefully women that are like, I guess have tried everything in life, but I don't think I don't agree with it, but that's a story for another day. But like, when they see, for example, I had to use her, but like Shira 7 videos, they're watching that as a 16-year-old and they thinking that they in the same level or caliber of the women that talk about those type of issues, where it's like, no, honey, you are still a baby. You shouldn't be watching. You should be getting advice. You should be getting high school, getting that degree, working, being independent, you know, find a man if you want to. But because this was been normalized, you know, a lot of teen girls see that as inspirational. They want to get the bag and not have to work for it. Oof, it's a lot. And there's also the schooling system where a lot of schools back home in Africa, obviously I'm generalizing. There are schools that definitely, I'm generalizing, you know what fits in where, like it's not 100%, but the majority of schools, they're not teaching reproductive health openly. These girls don't know what they're doing. They don't know contraceptive. They don't know how to say no. They don't know what's happening, basically. And they just end up in these situations where they're pregnant and they don't even know. Okay, I didn't know I was pregnant. But like, they are in situations where the schools are failing. They are not being taught properly what should be done. When I was in Zimbabwe, I heard so many people saying that within the schools now, when you apply, for example, for high school, there'll be too many kids, right? And then they'll separate the kids according to the grade that they have. So if you have a higher grade, you get put in this class, and then you have a grade that's a little bit lower than that, you get put in this class. And then there's the last class where there are students who do really badly in school, and then the teachers never even arrive at those classes. There are no teachers. Like, one of the kids were telling me, like, yeah, I just go to school, we play around, and we go back home. They're not learning anything, right? And that's what happens. The kids don't know what their bodies do. They don't know what's happening with themselves. Again, makes them end up being in situations where they are pregnant. And there's also just the desperation, poverty, basically people not, and also war, and also what's happening in Congo. This makes teens who don't know what to do get into these transactional relationships and end up thinking that that is the normal way of life, and they end up being pregnant by those type of things. So having said all of that, you can imagine the type of mindset that they have, and it is because of what they've seen, what they've experienced. So you can't really like just blame it on like, oh, they just like things, that's not the way that we should be looking at it. We should honestly look at the psychology behind it, and hopefully we can find a way forward for them to actually get helped, and also for people to have sympathy towards these young girls. I also want to talk about the parents, because I feel like people don't talk about the parents enough. We should talk about the parents because, and I'm about to be a parent. Oh my God. Like, I'm like, okay, it's kind of scary. Oh, if I'm going to have a girl child, ooh, I do want a girl though, but I feel like it's going to be a boy, but we'll see. Anyway, let's talk about the role of parents and their neglect and control and silence. The African parent is a tough one. You have to be so lucky to have one that's just like understanding and speaks and all that kind of stuff. But this authoritarian, I hope I'm saying that correctly, parenting style is also one of the leading causes why there is teenage pregnancy. Authoritarian parenting is more like, you do what I tell you, I don't explain why, and if you don't, you get punished. That's it. There's no communication. There's no explaining why. There's no open discussion. So therefore, these young women, these young girls just end up being scared and also experimenting too much and also lying a lot because of this type of parenting style. I should honestly talk about gentle parenting. Yeah, that's a topic I should talk about, because a lot of things can be prevented by just communicating with your kids. And there's also the silence, especially when it comes to sex education. I feel like your parents are the first people that should talk to you about this, and then school, because you don't know what they're telling your kids at school, right? As well, at the same time, right? You should sit down with your kids and talk to them about this. And what's annoying is that some parents avoid it until at a later stage, where it's like kids are getting exposed to porn at the age of like 7, 8, 9, that young. But when parents look at their kids, it's like, no, they could never. Like, of course they could never, but they live in a world, they live in a society, they go to school. There's so many ways predators are like coming at your kid that you want to reach to them before all that happens. So this whole silence on when it comes to sex, which is like a natural thing that happens, it's a human thing. It's right? Being silent on that is more harmful than talking about it. And the more we become open as parents, the better, honestly. Imagine the amount of saving if parents just openly talked about sex. Like, oh, honey, this is what this is called. When this happens. Don't let this one, all that. Now they're getting taught online. Now they're getting taught by their TV and, hiding in their rooms by their friends, which just makes everything worse. And the parents need to stop blaming their girl child. The blaming game, where it's like, when they get approached by these men and blaming them and slut shaming them, because sometimes the people in the home, the parents, are the first people to slut shame their own kids, and that way the kids become very embarrassed to actually tell the parents what's happening to them. And then one day your child is pregnant from this older man, and then you're shocked, right? You're embarrassed, but like they try to tell you, but because you always made sure to blame them, a child. That's another thing. If you're a parent, if you're watching this, check yourself, okay? Because it is never your kid's fault. It's not, because they are the child in the situation. And also just like parental absency. Some people are just not parenting. I feel like some people think sending money is parenting. And that's one thing I really want to call out, especially in Zim culture, where parents leave their children to go to South Africa or to go overseas and the relatives are raising them. That is a very dangerous game, because you don't know what those people are teaching your kids. Especially leaving these vulnerable girl children with older men that are your family members. You cannot, it's not a time in life right now where you can trust the males of your family. Like, it's always the people that are closest to you that are going to harm your kids. So I think parents definitely need to be more present, you know, not only present physically, but also asking their children every time, like, what happened? Tell me in detail. Did they touch you here? Questioning, and not being absent parents, okay? Providing money every month, that's not being a parent. It honestly is not. You need to be there physically, emotionally, for your children, for your children's well-being. Because sometimes parents will love to blame the kid. Oh, I did everything for you and now this is what you repay me. Like, you did what you're supposed to do because you're the parent. It's not like a favor. Like, oh, I paid for, like, as you should, as a parent, as you should, right? Now that we've done with the parents, let's talk about the government's role, like our African government's in role. I'm talking about Africa in general. I haven't been everywhere in Africa, but like I was looking at some videos and, you know, some news from Rwanda, from Congo, from South Africa and Zimbabwe. I was looking at some YouTube videos. I'm going to link them down below. But like, the government has a huge role in this heightened teenage pregnancy, and the laws are weak when it comes to taking care of this issue. The laws are not being taken seriously, especially, and also gender-based violence. That's another story for another day. But the government loves to say that, yeah, we are against child marriage, but the matter of enforcing it and really showing that this law is happening, and also society in general, the African society, the tone, the language that we use speaking about this type of issues, all that plays a role. Like, statutory rape is not being taken seriously enough, and it is because of the bribery, the corruption in the government, and also the victim blaming that's preventing justice from happening. The people, the social media, when these things get talked about, just look at the tone. Like, it's always blaming that little girl child, you know, and it's so heartbreaking to see. And also the government not allowing there to be accessible contraceptions for young teenage girls. I remember this girl that got pregnant, and I remember her not wanting to go to the clinic because the mothers, or not really the mothers, but like the aunties that work there as nurses, the way they'll be so judgmental, giving her like the things that she need, or other girls that would want to go get contraceptives to prevent pregnancy, the way they would feel shame going into the clinics and stuff like that. Like, it's there, right? But the stigma around it as well, the way the people in the community make these young girls feel for actually going to get help is insane. And it needs, and the government needs to find a way to make these places more accessible for these young girls. Like, putting a pack of public bathrooms, like, that's just not enough. Also, the government needs to also focus or not ignore the economic issues that lead to many of these young girls look for financial help from older men. Like, that's also a thing, you know, the economy, why this is so rampant. Because y'all, I'm telling you, I always knew these things happen, but like, seeing it in real life, seeing someone that's 17 want and leave their parents to go live with a 45-year-old man, and then you would ask her, why are you doing this? He's like, you tell her face to face and she'd be like, no, I love him, he loves me. Like, there's no way to tell that girl, like, stop, you know, because they wholeheartedly want to. it's so scary because it's like, damn, this is a larger issue. This is not just, ooh, like somebody, they need to be social workers. Y'all need to get on your game because it's rampant and it's so normalized and somebody got to do something about it. Anyway, that's a lot. So the consequences of the teenage pregnancy are pretty much obvious, right? They most likely don't finish school. And I always encourage, like, if you know a teenage person that has become pregnant, always encourage them to go back to school. Don't be like, oh, yeah, your life is over, all that kind of stuff. Like, you can still live your life with a baby, okay? But like, yeah, their education just gets interrupted, you know, the quality of life in general, because that man ain't gonna be there. He ain't gonna help you out. And what's sad is that in Zim, like, I've seen this a lot. As soon as you get pregnant, your parents kick you out. That's it. Like, they have no sympathy for you. You're out, and that's it. And they take no part in your children or the child you've had. And that's just the norm of it. Like, you get pregnant and you taken out of the house. And I just think, it's so harsh. Like, your own child, like, it's so harsh. But anyway, we need to break that cycle. And I think, you know, obviously it's a community effort. Education-wise, that needs to be a point, you know. Teachers need to be well equipped. They need to really talk about contraceptions, you know, recognizing predatory behavior. I think that's one thing that needs to be taught as well, so much, so that kids understand that it's not love. This 35-year-old man doesn't love you, you know. And I think my school, when I was in primary school, they really did a good job on that, like telling us or showing us even movies as well of this child that was like, I remember that movie traumatized me, of this child that was speaking to like a 35-year-old teacher, you know. Yeah, it was like a teacher, right, having a relationship with a student, right? And as teenagers, you have crushes on your teachers, right? And if he was to say, let's go out, you would probably go because you don't know anything. But like, I feel like teachers and schools should really make a point in discussing that part of it all, you know, not just, you know, the sex and using protection, but also warning and showing that this is not normal behavior. These men, your uncles, all that kind of stuff, they should not be in your pants. They should not be in your room at 2 a.m. Okay, those type of things I think should be taught. And also parents, it's their responsibility as well to be like, you cannot trust any man. Okay, don't matter who it is. My parents always told, they were like, no matter if it's a guy from church, the elder, if he comes here and we are not here, you do not open the door. You speak to them while they're outside. That's what my parents always told me. Like, we always locked our door. Never, ever open the door for any man. Doesn't matter who it was. So that type of honest conversations, that it can be a family, it can be someone you trust, that I think it's the parents' responsibility. And also we need to have stronger laws. Like, we need to be able to have laws that are effective, and we need to see examples. We need to see these men broadcasted, like, so that these kids know that is wrong, you know. We should also address, you know, economic struggles, and also just provide opportunities for young women so that they don't have to rely on men for survival. But anyway, in conclusion, I used to say Jerry's final thoughts. I don't know if you remember this, but like, I watched the Jerry Springer documentary on Netflix. I was like, yeah, I don't want nothing to do with that. Never mind. The teenage problem is not just an Africa problem or a girl problem, but in the world, societies, it's a society problem. Things are just being too normalized, and it needs each and every individual to be aware of this, to be aware of the surroundings, the kids that are around them. And it's a community effort, honestly. And until African societies challenges the normalization of these predatory relationships and empower young women with opportunities, the cycle will continue to destroy us. Let's not normalize it. Let's not, before you blame that little teenage girl, think about everything that I've said in this video, and hopefully things get better and the numbers decrease, because it's getting too much. It's honestly getting too much. But anyway, tell me what you guys think about this topic down below. Clearly, I'm very passionate about this because it just really hurts. And I feel like it could have been me. It could have been anyone that I know. I can't sit up here and be like, I was approached by men when I was young, and I feel like these young girls, like, I wish I could just save each and every one of them. But like, yeah, I have like some teenagers that watch me on this channel, and I just hope to appeal to you. Don't let that 23-year-old guy slide in your DM at 16. He don't love you. He's weird, right? Tell me what you guys think about this topic below. And see you guys next time. Bye.